Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio with your hosts, Billy Willard and the Blog Squatcher. Strap in, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down.
Hello. Today is December 1st, 2008. Welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. We have a wonderful guest tonight. We're going to have Mr. Philip Spencer. And for those who may not know who Philip is, he is the author of the book and DVD, The Wild Man of Kentucky, The Mystery of Panther Rock. And we're going to invite him on here in a few minutes. But before we do that, I would like to say hello to my great and wonderful, famous co-host, D.B. Dolan.
I don't know why you added that last part.
I'm just trying to come up with some really good adjectives, you know.
Right. And they don't have to be true. They just have to be good adjectives. I'm just typing in here. There's some people who are complaining they're not getting sound, so I'm typing in that if it doesn't work to refresh the page, they should close out their browser.
Right.
So this is what I'm doing. Right, I'm doing this live, which is why it's boring. Try to close out your browser and restart.
Yeah,
okay, I did that.
Yep, a lot of times they can just hit refresh, and
right.
It'll open up that link. So it's probably what it is. They just need to refresh the page. So DB, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I am doing just wonderful right now, thank God. And just wanted to check with you to see. I couldn't remember if you told me that you had some news to talk about tonight or not.
I got that thing we almost talked about last week, which is just something that got my goat. We
Right.
can go over that briefly. It was in the Scientific American website anyway. So this is kind of a national mainstream science magazine that also has a website. And I know that this is at least on the website. I can't tell whether it was in their print copy or not. But they had this article, the title of which is Global Warming Forcing Bigfoot to Move North? Okay. And okay, and let's read about this. If it's in a big magazine like Scientific American and they've combined global warming and Bigfoot, there's a good chance they're going to make fun of us. So you go into it thinking that, right? Well, you won't be disappointed, because that's exactly what they're going to do. Although in this case, they don't really have a reason to do it. They just kind of, they just slap us around for no real reason. The guy who's doing the research is a real, doc. But he doesn't have his PhD yet, I don't think. He's studying to get his PhD. I can't remember in what, but something that has to do with how animals are moving from one place to another because of climate change.
Right.
And he thought that, since we're doing this with other animals, you could actually do a study based on reported sightings to see if you're getting more in the north now than you used to be. And his preliminary results are that, yes, you're actually getting more in the north than you used to be. And that's kind of been our experience as long as we've been on the show, too. Remember, we've had so many national reports from areas in Canada, especially on the West Coast, but there were a couple from further east also. So, that's interesting. But they don't leave it at that, though.
Oh, they go
This
further.
is the way they write it. This is what got me all steamed. He says, but such modeling, this is I'm reading from his page here, could be used to study Bigfoot. So as a joke, he writes, Hickerson, who spent about 8 years in Washington State working in forests, where he says he heard some weird stuff at night, and his colleagues are talking all of the Bigfoot footprint and sighting data. I said talking, I should have said are taking all of the Bigfoot footprint and sighting data to try to figure out where the creature might be found. That is, if they exist, which Hickerson says is an incredibly big if. Note to believers, he's an open-minded skeptic, not one of you. Tongue planted firmly in cheek, he then told me that they still need more data, particularly from Canada, but his preliminary read is that there have been more sightings in northern parts of Sasquatch habitat lately. Maybe Sasquatch is moving up north, Hickerson suggested sarcastically. Watch out, Canada. And so that's how they close out that story. They didn't have to do all that stuff where there's, as a joke, he says, tongue planted firmly in cheek. He says it sarcastically. Note to believers, he's a skeptic, not one of you. All that stuff at the end of that, I mean, that's all gratuitous. There's no reason to have to add that stuff. And I just wonder what makes them think that they should do that.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I guess it's just it must be just so hard for people to even fathom the fact that there could be something out there walking around on they can't accept it, DB. They can't.
But you would agree with me, I'm sure, that that's really
yeah.
not a scientific attitude.
Right.
You know, because you can't accept something is not that's not a scientifically valid reason for it not to exist. In fact, that's one of the things that science is supposed to be, proof against is those prejudices that we have. Science is supposed to be able to show us the truth regardless of our prejudices. But, we see clearly in articles like this one that it really doesn't work that way. I mean, they could have said this in a neutral way, saying, well, we don't know if Sasquatch exists. We suspect that it doesn't, but we get these reports, and if you look at these reports, an interesting thing comes out, it looks like they're moving north. You could have said it that way in a completely neutral tone while still saying we don't think it exists and, not insulting anybody. It's this defensive insulting of other people that makes me think that there's a lot more going on behind this than, they would admit to. And that is they must either be afraid of it or, I'm talking about as human beings, not science as science itself, but the human beings who are scientists must be afraid of the thought or afraid of being ridiculed by their peers. Or so there's some fear that is causing them to act this way, which is, so apparent if you're not a skeptic. But if you're a skeptic, I imagine you'd read that and you wouldn't see anything wrong with it at all.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's, it is what it is, and we get the ridicule, we get the, but you're right. Science is supposed to, if something has been seen by so many people, you have some type of evidence left behind. What are you supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to study it and see, test. That's what science is. Science is a way to test theories, test evidence, and they're not willing to do that. They just aren't.
Yeah. I've always had this thought, and that is, even if they're right and Bigfoot doesn't exist, you still have a mystery that you ought to be interested in solving. Why is it that so many people are convinced that they have seen it? And not only are they convinced of it, but they actually can, give you some kinds of physical evidence. Now, they don't agree that this is all good physical evidence, but footprints is a kind of evidence. And unless you're going to say every one of those people is a liar and they manufactured the footprints themselves, which I've never heard a skeptic actually come out and say. It may be something that they believe, but they never come out and actually say that. Right. So you should want to investigate that. Why is it that these people think they've seen something if it doesn't actually exist? They have no answer for that, but it's as if they don't have to, because we can laugh at you because you believe it.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, thank you for getting us all heated up, DB.
Yeah, that's right. I know I stirred some people up. I'm not looking at the chat room yet. Let's see. Oh, no, they're talking to each other. They're not even listening.
Yeah, they not.
All right, well, let's go on to our guest now, because that's all I had.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, DB. Now we'd like to welcome our great guest, Mr. Philip Spencer, the author of the book and DVD, The Wild Man of Kentucky, The Mystery of Panther Rock. Philip, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
It's great to have you, and I'm so glad that you accepted our invitation to the show. So tell us just a little bit about yourself. I understand that you grew up in Kentucky. and apparently lived there for quite some time. I guess you live in Virginia now.
Yes, correct. I grew up in central Kentucky in the town of Lawrenceburg in Anderson County, and I live in Hampton, Virginia now. And the book and the DVD are about an area of central Kentucky, most of it primarily in Anderson County, but there are some questions about the size of this area that I refer to as the Fraser land. And it's about the stories of this area that seem to all take place around the cave known as Panther Rock.
Okay, interesting. Well, just so everyone knows, if anybody does want to check out Philip's website, I'll go ahead and get that out there. His website is at www.philipspencer.net. Again, that's philipspencer.net. You can go on there and see his website. Also, I do have a link, an Amazon.com link on the show page to his book, if anyone's interested. Just wanted to get that out there. Now, Philip, you don't have a problem taking any calls if any callers call in?
Oh, no, that's fine. Be more than happy to do that.
All right, so I'll get that out there, too. Our call-in number tonight is 347-237-5070. But what we'll do is we'll get into some, I'd like to ask you some questions, Philip. First of all, I'd like to know what exactly got you interested in doing this work and in this investigation.
Well, I would say when I was very young and lived in a rural part of Kentucky, a little town called Alton is what more commonly known as a wide spot in the road. It was just a common way of life. We hunted, fished, even as very young children. And one day, I was walking back through our farm, and we had a hillside that had been plowed and smoothed out. And I had my old Stevens crack shot rifle with me, and I walked into this field, and as I neared the center of it, I noticed the ground had been disturbed. And I walked over and looked down, and there was a very large single track, just one. And there was nothing else anywhere in this field. And it was a very distinct, very clear, three-toed track. It was of a right foot, I'd say 12, maybe 13 inches long. And I remember even backing away from it and looking around. Even at a young age in Kentucky, you're very knowledgeable about what should be there and what shouldn't be there. And that just did not register. And I think that was one of the major catalysts as far as my curiosity and just wanting to find out about unusual things of this nature.
Right. That's a good thing to get you interested.
Right.
Now, let me ask DB. Do you have any questions, DB, before I go on here?
We did get one from Bipedalist. He wanted to know about eyeshine from the Fraser creature. Did you have eyeshine?
Okay, sure. Now, from the Fraser creature, there's several. We have a creature in the Fraser land that attacked the gentleman we refer to as the ex-farmer, his dogs. But he didn't mention eyeshine from his witness to that. My sighting, which happened in Anderson County, the eyeshine was actually what drew me to see the creature. We were in a remote area shining a spotlight late one night, and we were looking at a field of deer in a river bottom that is the Salt River. And I noticed unusual, it was just something that was not right about the eyes. So I pulled the spotlight back, and there was this huge, upright creature standing and it turned. It walked away down through this river bottom. It looked back twice, and this creature was huge. The deer that were out in this field, it was so much larger from a vertical point of view. It looked back over its shoulder twice, and we watched as there was an old fence that went across this river bottom. And for anybody that doesn't know, a bottom is just a flat piece of land where the river cuts through. Right. And there was a fence, old fence, probably 4, maybe 5 feet tall. When this creature came to that fence, I knew where this fence was, and it was heading directly to this fence. If there was the least bit of hesitance, it was hard to tell, but you could see it, a change in the gait and so forth of the creature as it just walked over this fence. And it didn't run, didn't walk slow. It was just a steady gait away from us. And there was something else. The deer did not panic. They kind of shuffled. I mean, if somebody might be used to seeing maybe a large number of deer, where it was just they just shuffled a little bit. It was kind of like they were just getting out of the way a little bit. Right. But they didn't panic. They did not run away. But specifically to that eye shine, there was just something. There was an orangish, but a reddish tint like to this. They were just different. When I went by it, I was sweeping right to left, and all of a sudden it's just like your mind goes, wait a minute, something's not right back there. Right. And then that's when I went back with the light, and that's when we saw this creature. Right. And there was no doubt. There wasn't any question about what we were seeing. Right. And I personally, this is me personally, I'm way past, is this creature real? Right. I'm way past that. And I respect others' opinions and what they think. That's good for the discussion in anything. Right. But personally, I know what I saw, and it was definitely the creature known as Bigfoot.
All right. Well, we've got a caller on the line. I bet, Philip, if you've been in this field for a while, you're going to know this fella.
Okay.
He's probably one of the most famous guys out there as far as calling into these radio shows. And before I get him on, just to repeat the number, the call-in number tonight is 347-237-5070. And with that, I'll bring on Mr. Bill Green.
How you doing, Billy, Phil, and DB?
Hello, Bill.
Doing good, Bill.
I'm doing great. Phil, I was watching the trailer for The Wild Man of Kentucky on YouTube. It looked great. My cousin's gonna get it for me for Christmas.
Great. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. And are you currently investigating any sightings in Kentucky or footprints or strange screams?
Well, Bill, let me tell you, this area where we went in and filmed the documentary, in the area that the book was written about, just keeps having things happen. I get phone calls. Well, it's just like the Fraser howl, which can be heard on my website. That came in within the last few months after we had left. And the gentleman known as the ex-farmer that owns a large amount of property in the area, and he and his family have had so many strange things happen, and they still keep happening.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's referred to as the ex-farmer. He asked to remain anonymous, and he had valid reasons, and of course I respected that in the DVD and the book. Yeah. But yes, we're still getting data from this area, and it's actually just mystifying as to what in the world is going on there.
Yeah, Phil, have you ever gone? There's a Kentucky Bigfoot campsite. I might have seen it there once or twice. Where these people, I think it might be that guy that has the webcams on his land to catch any wildlife.
No. No, I've never been there. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I've seen that online. I think's where I saw it. But no, I haven't been there.
Yeah. But
right,
yeah, again, your documentary looks great, and hopefully my cousin gets it for me for Christmas and stuff. And I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the show and stuff. And keep in touch.
Thanks,
Okay,
Bob.
Bill. Thank you so much. It's good talking with you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. Again, the call-in number, if you want to call in and ask Philip a question, is 347-237-5070. Before I go on, DB, was there any more questions from the chat?
No, we had one, but then actually Bill asked it. It was what was this? We were talking about the Fraser creature. Was that near the same place where the Kentucky Film Project was?
Okay, all right.
Is that what it's called? Kentucky Cam Project is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's they got something. I forget what they call it. They got a specific name for it.
Right. I think this is two different locations.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Okay. Well, we nailed that down then.
There we go. So Phil, what do you think the reason is as to why you have all these strange events going on in that area of Kentucky? Do you have a theory for that?
Well, I only think about that about 24 hours a day. I just don't know. If you have one event taking place, if you have one mystery at one location, but this place just has so much going on. We've got strange footprints. We've got sounds. We've got a picture of a track that's over 18 inches long. We've got a family that will not go out on their own property unless they are armed. Their children absolutely have stopped all camping on their own property. These people didn't want this. This is not something they were hoping would occur to them in their life.
Right.
And there's just so much that's happening in this area. The Fraser Howl was recorded from the same area. This is where the ex-farmer realized the sound was coming from late that night, was coming from the same area where what is known as the Fraser Track was found, where there's some strange rock formations. It's where the track that was over 18 inches long was found. This is the area where others have spoken about this feeling. Now, I'm sure you guys and everybody listening has heard about the feeling. When you're out there and it's just like something is watching you. There's something going on. Well, I spoke with and interviewed numerous people, and they were very, very explicit about the feeling. These were experienced hunters and so forth, talking about this one area where all this is going on. I mean, you have a man's 3 farm dogs in a brutal fight one night with some kind of creature. These were 60 and 70-pound dogs. The ex-farmer could see them from his cabin porch just before the light ended. He could see the fight taking place. He could just make out this creature. But this creature, whatever it was, he found his 2 Dobermans laying in his yard the next morning with their faces ripped open, where large claws had hit. His 70-pound farm dog was gone and was never seen again. And the thing about this struggle that I find just even stranger than the struggle itself, whatever was fighting these dogs never made a sound.
Wow.
He heard the dogs screaming. He heard the fight. He even could see this creature. But he said it was larger than the dogs. He said not a lot. He said maybe 100 pounds or a little more. It was on all four legs, and he said the strangest thing was that the coat looked like to him of a mangy sheepdog. That's how he described it.
Right.
But he said he would see this thing raise its front paw into the air and slap the dogs. But these dogs had gashes in their faces that were just unbelievable. They were both this. He had to rush them in to save them.
Right.
And this is all in this same area. It's all within. All this occurs around this cave. It all occurs around this cave. And there are stories that go back many, many years about the cave known as Panther Rock. And that's, after I stepped back and looked at everything happening, it just sort of dawned on me, well, this is all happening around this cave.
Right.
And there's been strange reports about events at the cave. I've had some very strange things occur at the cave. Right. And so that's how I correlated the mysteries of Panther Rock.
Right.
So like I say, it's just a very mysterious place, and I don't know why this is all happening in this area.
Right. Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. I'm going to have to go right along with Bill. I think I'm going to have to get the book or the DVD myself just to read up on it. We got another caller here. Caller from the 662 area code. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio, and our guest, Philip Spencer.
Now, you ought to know who this is, Billy.
Henry May.
Yeah. How you doing?
I knew you wouldn't be too far behind Bill.
Yeah. Yeah, how you doing? Hello, Philip.
Hello, how you doing?
Just fine, just fine. I wanted to ask you about the, if you're familiar with the Dogman legend in Kentucky, especially in the land between the lakes.
Yes.
And the work of Martin Nunley.
Exactly.
Martin Nunley
I've read up on that. I'm familiar with it, and I understand there's, it seems like there's some similarities, maybe some correlations in what happened with the dogs there and so forth. I'm not extremely, knowing as far as all the specifics about that creature, but I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Mhm. I imagine you heard about the murder that occurred in that area, in the land between the lakes area.
The murder?
The mysterious murder of a family.
I'm sure that I may have read that. It seems like I do remember something. I can't say for sure, but I am familiar with that. I've looked over all that information.
Mhm. Yeah, apparently a whole family was just basically ripped apart by some animal, some sort of an animal, which correlated to a wolf. And
that's interesting.
This happened, I think, back in the 80s or the 90s. It's in a documentary by John Johnson called Hunt the Dog Man. They talk about it on there. Bart Nunley is interviewed.
So are you saying that the family that was killed was ripped apart by what they inferred was a wolf-like creature, or a wolf specifically? Was this in relationship to possibly this Dogman theory?
There is a bit of a correlation, perhaps, with the Dogman. That there may be a correlation with the Dogman legend. I mean, nobody's really sure, absolutely for certain, but there's a bit of a correlation there with the Dogman legend and also these unusual murders.
Mm-hmm. I remember now that I was looking at drawings. I was looking through a group of drawings, and there was an artist interpretation of what possibly the Dogman looked like. That's what I remember.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a possibility. There's a photo called The Beast of Seven Shoots. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. The photo taken in Canada of what appeared to be an individual, some sort of creature with what appeared to be a snout. and there have been
Yes,
those.
I've seen that picture. Yes, I've seen that picture. And also, there was one in Texas where when the creature turned its head, there was a snout seen. Yes, I'm familiar with that too.
And there was also a film called the Gable film, which is actually on John Johnson's documentary, the Gable film, which appears to show what looks like almost like a chow dog type creature or whatever running towards the camera, but then you see this pair of fangs coming at the end. You know, somebody took a motion picture film, not a video, but an actual film of something. You know, which appears to be.
That's very. There's so many strange and bizarre animals.
To me than a dog. I've seen that one. I'm not saying that it's a real film or anything, but it actually looks a lot like a gorilla, which is what got Bigfoot researchers at all interested in it. Was that when it starts that run, it has the elevated shoulders and the lower back end that makes it run kind of like a gorilla would. You don't see it for very long, and it's not very clear, so you can't tell what it is, but that makes it interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to call in and check in and ask Philip some questions. Thank you very much for entertaining my questions, and I'll be listening to the rest of the show.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Henry.
thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks, Henry.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, very good. Again, for anyone out there, the call-in number is 347-237-5070. That's a 347-237-5070. DB, do you have any questions?
I've got a few.
Okay.
Let's see here. Nancy1WV wanted to know if Philip thought that Bigfoot tend to stay in one spot, or do they roam around? That's one question.
Well,
you can start with it.
I've been asked this before and recently, and it's hard for me not to think that they are not perhaps a creature that moves for mainly the reason of food. It seems like there will be sightings in an area, and then over time there's nothing. Then maybe they'll come back. I tend to think maybe due to a food source that they might be creatures that change territory, that they move to different locations for a food source.
Right. I'd say that's very plausible. That's for sure.
Yes, I think so. There's so much diversity in the research and the stories that come out about this creature. But that doesn't necessarily mean that maybe there are some of these creatures that live in such a vast area that the food supply is so diverse that when you say they move, they could still be within a contained area and find plenty of the food source they need. I guess if you say that they move for a food source, we wouldn't be taking into consideration that a creature acclimates itself to the food that's available. And if you're in an extremely remote area, your food source is more than likely going to be somewhat static. You're going to have maybe what you need, specifically if you have water and so forth. The creature, if it needed food, it would probably move to it. But if it lives in such a remote area and there's enough diversity as far as a food source, then it could roam an area that was large but not necessarily move from south to north and so forth.
Right. What else, DB?
Well, we've had a couple other questions come up. Bipedalist had a couple more. He wanted to know if you had any ideas about infrasound. Do you know what that is?
Yes. I've recently started looking into that. I've actually been looking for equipment to delve into that spectrum and try to understand it a little more. I think that's a very intriguing topic and something that needs to be looked at more. I'm not well versed as far as spectrum analysis or the frequency ranges we're talking about. I understand some things about sound, ELF, things of that nature, but I think there's some really needs to be some in-depth studies done into that. And like I say, I've actually been trying to find some equipment to see what can be done in that spectrum.
Right. Well, just as a side note, that's something we're working on.
Oh, okay, great.
All right, DB.
Well, we also have another question for Bipedalist. He wants to know if there's any evidence of unusual flying creatures in Fraser.
Flying creatures, not in everything that I've known about the area, but just a few miles away, there was something that happened. I was called by a farmer who had found his bull dead in his barn. Asked me to come and look at it and help him with it, actually get it out. Well, this bull had just very classic signs of what you would hear in cattle mutilations. The eye and several other areas of the body had been removed, and it looked just like surgical precision. Now, what this has to do with sounds, and as far as aerial, this is near a lake, small lake, and several reports had come out of this area about this strange sound in the air. It was like a hyper buzzing, between a buzz and a click, and people would hear it at night. And where this barn was, and it ran down to the lake, was not very far. Well, I spoke with someone who is one of the world's leading experts in this area, and she told me that buzzing, clicking sound has been heard many times with a mutilation. So as far as anything is, there was a story that the ex-farmer told about seeing a very, very large owl sitting in a tree. He said it was so big that it didn't seem like it was possible. And just after we had done the documentary, he also called, and they had heard like a flapping of huge wings in the sky above his cabin. Never did see anything, but he said it was just, and let me just tell everybody this. The ex-farmer is a retired professional. He is a very, very credible man. He is an intelligent man. And the last thing ever that he ever wanted was for all this to happen. You can hear him on the DVD, read about him in the book. It took me months to convince him to speak. He requested his face be covered and his voice be masked, which I respectfully honored. He has reason. And all these things keep occurring, just like this huge owl that him and his friend saw sitting in a tree. Now, we can all speculate about the significance of what that means. There's many legends and so forth. Or the sounds like of huge wings flapping in the night sky. But that's just a few of the things that have happened to this man and his family in this area. And like I say, there's nothing, they're gaining nothing from all this. And they just want to know what in the world is happening and why is it happening where it is.
Yep. All right, DB.
You're looking for more. Well, I got more.
I know. I don't want to move on until I know that you are through the questions, because a lot of times we don't get to all those folks' questions, and it makes me feel bad. So,
well, we got a couple more. We
all
have Uziel, and I hope I pronounced that right. Uziel asks, "Do you think that they hibernate?"
I don't know. I've thought about that. I'm sure as many others have. Do they hibernate? I think if you step back and you looked at the data, I don't know if the data would tell you that might be feasible. You have reports in wintertime, summertime, spring, fall. Maybe someone's done a data analysis and look and see if there are gaps or periods where wintertime, which is the typical hibernation period for a standard reason, there's still sightings, So I'm not one to believe that there's possibly a hibernation period with this creature.
right.
Yeah.
I would have to sort of agree with you. I think that we tend to see sightings year-round, although I have to admit, and I'm sure DB will agree with me on this, although the sightings do seem to increase around late summer, fall, and then again in around springtime. So
I understand.
But I personally think that it may not be a hibernation thing, but I think it may be because that's when most of the people are out to actually have a sighting.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've looked at the maps and so forth, and where you have people, that's where you have your sightings.
Right. All right, DB, you still got the floor, buddy.
Well, we got one more from Watch One, and the question is, what have you learned about their eyesight? Can they see infrared or any colors at night?
Personally, I cannot answer that question because I don't have a subject to use to analyze the vision properties of the creature. I know there's been a lot of discussion lately about the hearing, the sight, can they see the laser on the trail cams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Until there's data to use to verify that, I don't know how anybody's going to come to a conclusive answer to what this creature can or can't do. I can tell you this, that I have always been a proponent of multiple dimensions. The work of individuals such as Michio Kaku and others, theoretical physicists, who have taken advanced mathematics and shown theoretically that multiple dimensions are viable. Basically, they have come to the conclusion, yes, they exist. I've also had a lot of internal conflicts with myself, wondering if this creature is of dimensional being. Am I just using this as an easy way out? Because I've spent so many years going, what is going on? Why is this creature it's so elusive? I've often wondered, well, we have this dimensional being that can float between realities and resonant frequencies, so that explains a lot of things. But I also have to step back and think, boy, that's awful convenient. So as far as can it see a laser, different frequencies of in ultraviolet and so forth, I'm sorry, but I don't know. I just don't know.
Was that it, DB?
Oh, heck no. They're just loading us up. Now, you just talked about the multidimensional thing, which Dennis Q was asking, what do you think of the theory that they're multidimensional? And you covered that. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Not really. The area there in the Fraser Land around the cave at Panther Rock, we've had great discussions, myself and some of my colleagues, about, is this place a portal? Of course, a dimensional portal, a gateway to somewhere else. And, of course, then you have the never-ending discussion of, is a portal possible, feasible, worth thinking about, or are we dealing with reality or fantasy, which can be, never-ending discussions. I saw something at Panther Rock one night that was just stunning to witness. Myself and 3 others were camping, which was common at Panther Rock. It was a nice place to camp. We were up above the cave, which is 100 or so feet below. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was suddenly being beaten in the back with somebody screaming, "Look, look, look, look," at the top of their lungs. And I rolled over and looked, and there was a light coming up out of this cave. Now, the cave is 100 foot down, and the ledge goes back to the entrance down below. And you have to understand that there's a creek that comes out small when it's dry, runs down into a rock area, and goes into an extremely dense woods. I mean, extremely dense. There's no place for anybody to go, period. This light was a bluish white. It was like a beam light, broken into sections, but solid, if that makes sense. It had the strangest hue to it, and it went into the sky. And we were all just frozen in place. We were just frozen looking at this. And then it just went off as if you flipped a wall switch. The woods were silent. There was not a sound to be heard. I even went down to the cave. I took the path. I went down to the cave just to look around. There was nothing. There was no place for anybody to go. What in the world could they have even began to make this light with to begin with? But that was very hard to wrap your mind around as to what just happened there, that 4 people witnessed. Where did that come from, that bizarre, strange, huge light that came out of that cave? So as for the dimensional aspects, it's something we can all talk about and wonder. But at this time, that's all it is speculation and wonder.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I certainly can't say that I've ever seen or experienced anything quite like that. Don't get me wrong, I have experienced some strange things, and a lot of people I'm sure that's listening to the radio show tonight have heard me express those things. But personally, I'm still wondering what causes certain things, like some people's reaction to what we all think could be infrasound. I
Right.
don't know the answer, and I don't think we'll know the answer until first we prove the existence of the creature.
Correct. I understand completely.
I'm with the rest of you. I have no clue. I really
Yeah,
don't.
that's what it comes down to. Unfortunately, until we have old Sasquatch in the bucket of a front loader with everybody looking at him, it's just going to be ongoing discussion, but we need that. We need skeptics. We need believers. We need everybody in the community looking at this.
Right.
Personally, as I said earlier, I'm way beyond, is it real?
Right.
I am an absolute believer. I know what I saw.
Right.
But why and what, when and where, and all that about this is such a great mystery.
Right.
Why do thousands of people worldwide report seeing this creature or something very similar?
Right.
Well, like you said earlier, that's a mystery in itself.
Right. All right, you still got the floor, DB?
Let's see. I'm typing a little something here, and let me finish that. Okay. I did get 2 more questions. Froggy Vet wanted to know if you've had any contact with the Cherokee people from the area and whether they had any stories.
No, I haven't, but there are stories, and the area is rich in Native American history. And honestly, that's about all I can say about what I know about that.
Right. Last question I got on my list, which doesn't mean it'll be the last one we get because they're feisty in there tonight. Bipedalist wants to know what you think about stick structures and whether you found anything good came of it and all that.
Well, I've looked at many of these. I've seen a few things that made me inclined to think that's rather an odd build. How did that happen and so forth? But I recently we're looking at some images a friend sent me. And he and I were talking, and I said, well, you know, a creature such as Bigfoot could have done that. Also, somebody passing through, a hunter or somebody else could have done that and done it as a temporary shelter or something of that nature. It hasn't been too long ago, DB, that I sat back and thought about this structure. And now some of them you can look around and see are, to me, without doubt, well-built enclosures. I remember many times as a young boy in Kentucky, we would build structures like this. We would take saplings and so forth and vines, and we would build places out in the woods that we would commonly go to and stuff. But some of these, I've noticed a lot of similarities, though, in the structures with just base limbs and things. You know, and I've tried to think, if the creature known as Bigfoot is doing this, why? What is the purpose of this? You know, I've thought, have they seen humans build structures, looked at round tents or teepees, and is this creature trying to emulate that? What would the purpose be of them? And I don't know. Within the Fraser land, there were 30 to 50 trees found by the ex-farmer after one morning after hearing a very large noise back in the back of his property. These trees had all been snapped off about 7 feet above the ground. Now, first of all, that's a large number of trees. Now, as I've talked to people about this, they've talked about cyclonic down thrust and all these different variables for when they could possibly have done it. Maybe that's true, but all these trees were snapped off and hanging. And this is the area where all these strange things go on. And here's just another case. You know, what could have done that? What broke these limbs? Were they going to take these limbs and do some sort of odd structural experiment or something? So there's been some things seen in the Fraser land from a structural aspect, limb-wise and so forth, but not a lot to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Right. Can I get another quick question in, DB?
We do have one more here. Uziel asks, have you ever tried leaving gifts out? See if that would work for you.
We tried baiting, and then we were a total failure. However, the raccoons in the area loved us.
Right.
We were very popular with them. That's basically what we've done. If I could narrow down what this creature likes, that would help a lot. We've done that. We've tried baiting, and it was a total failure. And I talked to some people in the area. If they had left things out, was there trash disturbed, so forth, and so on. Nobody said anything like that. But I would certainly think that there would be something. I mean, I think, what is it? They've done all kinds of scents and everything, and to my knowledge, nothing has worked. So I don't know if gifts, in that terminology, would work to lure the creature out. Right.
I got a quick question, DB, from an instant message. This is coming from Swamp Rat. Swamp Rat would like to know, Philip, what county do your investigations take place in Kentucky?
That would be in Anderson County.
Okay.
And that's about, Anderson, that's about 20 miles west of Lexington and 50 miles east of Louisville.
Okay. Thank you for that. Go ahead, DB. You still got the floor.
Well, shoot, we got some more that just came in. Don't worry, be happy. Wants to know what are some unusual or unique field experiences that you've had?
Well, let me tell you about what happened to us when we were filming this documentary.
All right.
Where to begin? We went to the cave the second night. Let me tell you this in inverted form. We went in there, of course, and just to let everybody know, we weren't expecting anything. I mean, you don't get all your big Sony HD cameras and your crew and go, okay, we're going to go out and film the most mysterious things and capture them. You know, you'd like to, but we went out and it was, other than a really large wild turkey and maybe a possible knock or two in the distance, it was an absolutely tranquil, beautiful night at Panther Rock. That was it. So the next night, we moved to another location that was on the ex-farmer's property. And let me tell you, we went in to two of us stayed up above. Two more went down into the area where the tracks, the sounds, and everything occurred. And things started off by them going down in there, myself and the other team member up top. When we started hearing sounds, we heard thuds, we heard movement, and we had been there for an hour just sitting quietly and heard basically nothing. But once they went down in there, we started hearing movement. Now, you could say, well, it's animals. You're down there. You're making them move. All these things. Yes, that's very possible. But this was just strange. We could hear fluid movement in the trees, as if something was rushing through the trees. We could hear this. This is what the witnesses had told us about, was this sound. Then everything kept moving to the east. This is what I figured out later, we were focusing on this one area. Well, whatever was going on kept moving to the east and took us with it, just like it was the easiest thing it ever did. We filmed in the DVD. You can see these lights that we captured. You could only see them with the night vision. But then we saw bigger lights behind the trees. We saw this large shadow go between us and the light. And it became apparent to me that something had led us away from that area where all this is going on. Or at least that's what I felt. And we still don't know what happened up in that field to us.
Wow. Real quick, we've only got about a minute remaining, but we can go into archive as long as you're comfortable, Philip. I know that you had mentioned earlier that you may have to rest your voice a minute.
Yes, I can do that for a little bit.
Okay.
I think it'll hold out for just a little bit.
Okay. Just so everyone knows, before we go off the air, you can listen to the remainder of the show on archive. But next week, just to prepare everybody, next Monday night, we will have Mr. Scott Oball from Ohio on the show. He's bringing with him a whole bunch of audio clips, and I know everybody just loves listening to audio clips of things he's recorded not too far from Salt Fork State Park in the state of Ohio. So you want to stay tuned next week for that. Now, again, okay, Philip and DB, I think, did you have more questions, DB?
We did have one other question from Andy Drew. He was asking, back when we were talking about baiting, what was it that you used for bait that didn't work?
We used berries. We used fish. Let's see, what else did we use? We used honey and grain. We used numerous bait that we could think of. And like I say, we positioned the cam where, of course, it would hit the bait tree. But we never got anything other than the raccoons in the area, which were extremely fond of us for feeding them like that.
Right.
All right. And was that all of them, DB?
Well, that's all the ones that I've caught, and that was a lot of questions this time. I'll tell you what, that's more than 10.
We had plenty of questions, and I feel bad for Philip because I feel like we've
no, that's
overdone
okay. No, I don't mind at all. I like for the questions to come in, actually, get people thinking about it, and maybe you never know, we'll figure out something, and that's what I'm about. I'd like to know some answers.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you I'd like to ask you this. I realize that you guys have done this DVD, and I guess my question will be: are you guys planning on doing any other DVDs?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. 2009 is going to be a big year.
Okay. Now, is it going to be based in the same area?
At this time, I'm not sure. Okay. Like I say, this so much just keeps happening there.
Right.
I just don't know how to wrap my mind around this.
Right.
At this time, the answer would be no. We are going to be really very much based in Bigfoot and the search for this mystery. I have, at this time, 2 major productions in mind for 2009.
Very good. Well, I think we'll be looking forward to that. Let's see. I believe that is all I had, DB, unless you had something in your mind.
Well, I want to know if there's anything that we didn't get to. Philip, you sent us a nice package of information, and there was a lot of things in there that we could have asked that we didn't get to because we had so many questions from our chat room folks and some callers. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't touched?
Well, I would like, if everybody has a chance, and they could go to my website and then go to my blog, I have a page linked, something we call the Fraser track.
Mm-hmm.
And this is I had known about Panther Rock for many, many years.
I'm actually on your website. Can you tell me where I would find that link?
I believe it's right on my, let me bring that up real quick while I'm talking. I believe it's just to...
It's philipspencer.net, right?
Correct. Let me see where that is. And let me look here so we won't have any dead time. That would be my blog at the top.
While you're looking for that, and we're in archive.
Oh, okay.
While you're looking for that, I'm going to try to refresh my switchboard and see if I can get that audio file to come up, and we can play it here in the archive.
Okay, great.
So you and DB can keep talking there.
Okay, I've got it located. If you go to my blog, off of my website, and scroll down, it says the Fraser Mud Track.
Got it. I see you have me linked in your links there. Very good.
Exactly. And you just click on the down below the description. It'll take you to a page. And you can see the pictures, the analysis that I did. And, I'd love to hear some people's thoughts on this. I'll tell you something. I spoke with several experts on canine and feline tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And both camps were inconclusive about this track. There are specifics from the canine group and specifics from the feline group that are not where they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of interesting because some of the feline folks said, well, it has to be a canine because it's not a feline. Then the canine folks say, well, it's got to be a feline because it's not a canine. You know? So in other words, they just don't know what did this. This is a large track. And just so everyone will know, a week after this track was found, 1 mile away, a 700-pound cow. I went and interviewed these people. I talked to this man and woman, just down to earth, country, hard-working people. One of their cows, a 700-pound cow, came crashing through the back gate one morning. They rushed outside to look. Its right eye had been ripped out of its head. Its ears had been torn off down to the bone. And there were huge gashes in its back. Now, they actually had a picture. They called a vet and saved this cow. And before I knew about this and could get to it and everything for pictures, the cow had either died or they had sold it or something like that. But they tried every way in the world to find the picture that they took of the cow after the attack. But they had got a vet and saved the cow's life. And they had it for several years after it was attacked. But the farmer told me, he said, I will never believe that this was done by dogs. He said, I don't believe that. He said, I've been here for over 60 years. He said, I've seen cows attacked by dogs. He said, I've never in my life seen anything like this. And you have to admit, that's a very vicious attack.
Yeah.
A very vicious attack. So I'd like if somebody can say, well, this is what this print is, I'd sure like to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I got bad news. I can't get the, apparently when you refresh your switchboard, it makes it look like you need to call in again.
Okay.
So, anyway, we gave it a try.
Well, they can actually get that sound from the homepage. I put up a link to the homepage in the chat room.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, the Fraser Howl, and also I was very, it was rather ironic that I was trying to do comparisons to sounds when I got the Fraser Howl, and I was looking and listening, and just by chance we had this recording that we called the Fraser Sound. That nobody could figure out. I spoke with people, 50-year outdoorsmen and veteran hunters. I spoke with all these people. Nobody had ever heard anything like it. And then while I'm trying to identify the Fraser Howl, I just accidentally ran across this fox screaming on YouTube.
Right.
And I clicked it, and there was that sound.
Yeah.
Never in my life would I believe that a fox could make a sound like that. I've never
unless you
heard
hear
it.
them doing it, you wouldn't know that they could do that.
And another, it was so loud. It was unbelievably loud.
It's just the sound where I haven't heard this one that's on your site, and I can't listen to it because my headphones are on the other computer talking with you. But is it the one where it sounds kind of like a woman screaming?
In a sense, yes. It's just yes. It's got so much volume to it. Your mind would never tell you that's coming out of a fox, and that's what fooled the ex-farmer. He kept hearing this, but he never could see it.
Right.
And it was so loud, and he just couldn't figure out what it was. And I listened. I'd never heard it before, and I've got quite a bit of outdoor experience. And I called some of my friends that are just true outdoorsmen. They said, I've never heard anything like that. I don't know what it is, but it's a red fox.
Right.
I was glad to know that.
I actually heard one of those last weekend. We had went out into the woods, and we heard exactly what you're describing. Sounded like a woman screaming. And, I mean, when you first hear it, it's like, whoa, man, what was that? You
Right.
know? Now, immediately after we heard it, it set off a barred owl. The barred owl just started up right after that. And I came home and actually started doing some research over, on sounds, and found probably the same thing you found. I found that red fox on YouTube that made that exact sound.
Yeah, it's the exact. I called the ex-farmer, I said, I have found what that sound is. I said, listen. So I played it where he could hear it on the phone. Right. He said, that's it. That's it exactly. Yep. So that's one thing that was solved. But like I say, there's so many mysteries here. Yeah. I mean, there's a tree clipping mystery involved in this that has brought everybody that has looked into it just at a halt. It is I'm thinking about actually maybe going ahead and putting this up online, because all of us and some others that we speak to that have just many years in the outdoors and so forth, everybody has just given up. We cannot begin to explain what was found. And it's about twigs. I know that sounds crazy. When people say, well, what's that got to do with Bigfoot? Well, possibly nothing. When I first heard it, when this was first told to me, I thought, maybe a bedding. But the more I found out, the more bizarre it got. And it's a tree that's right above the ledge of the cave. And the man that owns the land noticed one day that all these clippings of these little twigs from this tree were just covering the ground. And the way he described it, maybe 5 to 7 pickup truck bed loads. Now, once you stop and think about that, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Now, here, I'll tell this. Every one of them is almost the same length. Every one of them is cut at a slight angle. Every one of them. Now, here's, we talked about birds, we talked about squirrels, we talked about insects, but here's where everybody comes to a stop. Every one of them were split down the middle perfectly. I mean, perfectly. You could sit there and look at them all day. And they're split down the middle like you put them in a vise and used a machine to split them. And that's where everybody just went blank. Right. Because nobody can figure out what can do that. And we're not talking about a couple. We're talking about loads of them.
Yep.
And now the tree is dying.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
Right, and I've got lots of pictures of that. And like I say, we thought we heard knocks that night. We were back at the cave. It sounded like we were, and we did some knocks in return, but never heard anything. But overall, the night at the cave was quiet. It was the next night when things just got very, very bizarre.
What's funny is I think we still have questions coming out of the chat, even though they can't hear.
Yeah, we do.
Well, I could probably do about a few more minutes. I'll be happy to answer. I don't mind answering questions.
Well, this is about the Land Between the Lakes monster. They want to know, this is from somebody named Night Listener, who wants to know if you have heard anything recently about the Land Between the Lakes monster. Something new.
Well, I've heard numerous stories about numerous creatures in that area. Everything from waterborne creatures to land-based monsters and so forth. Honestly, in the last year or so, I've been so focused on this book in documentary that I haven't stayed up on things like I used to. But over the years, there have been numerous accounts of creatures in that area. Now, specifically, the one that they're referring to, like I say, there might have been, and I just don't know it. I've been very focused on this project. So at this time, no, I couldn't speak to that.
All right. Anything else, DB?
That was our last question, or at least the last one that I saw.
Philip's probably saying, thank God.
You only had to go 15 minutes overtime.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Phil,
no, it's good. I like people taking part. That's really good. Where the community can all. That's good.
We've always had a really good turnout, a really good crowd. We've got a lot of loyal listeners that listen to the show.
That's great.
Every week.
That's great.
So, we enjoyed having you on the show, and we thank you a lot, and we're hoping that you will accept an invitation to come back again soon.
Listen, thank you guys so much. It's just been a blast, and for all the listeners and all the people that called in and everything, thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time, and you guys are great, and we certainly will do it again.
All right. Thanks a lot, Philip.
Great show.
Okay, guys. All right, take care.
All right, talk to you later, Philip.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. DB, I think we've wrapped it up there. I would start some exit music, but guess what?
You closed it out. We'll just have to sing it.
Go ahead.
See, people don't know that. I wrote those songs. They don't know that because you never announced it.
I know.
But
and then
I could actually, if I get my guitar out, I can play it.
There you go. And then they come in here and try to ask us saying things about our music. Daggone it, DB is going to get you.
That's right. Yeah, it was JC who said it. He said, something really disparaging about our opening bit, and he wonders why I keep kicking his butt in the chat room, but that's the answer right there. He said something
that's
bad
right.
about
So, JC, we know that you're going to listen to the archive tomorrow.
And we didn't ask your underwear question either.
That's right. And the next time DB hears you say something about the music on the next little excursion we have, watch out.
Nuclear wedgie.
All right. Thanks, DB, for doing a great job as you always do. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been another great night of Sasquatch Watch Radio. We'll see you all next Monday night with Scott Oball from Ohio as he brings us some wonderful recordings to listen to. Good night, everyone.
Can't wait. Good night, Billy.
Good night.
Taking charge of your future starts with taking the first steps. And saving up to $30 a month on Cox Internet with the Affordable Connectivity Program makes those steps easy to take. Whether they bring you to click upload on your first short film, or join now for an online book club. Applying is easy. See if you qualify at cox.com/ACP. Non-transferable, one per household. Application and eligibility decisions are made by the FCC.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.